This tale harks back to 1994 when my family and I relocated to a fresh neighborhood on Woodville Street's 7th Cross. I was just a 9-year-old girl, but the memory of that house remains vivid. It was an aged Victorian dwelling with lofty towers, turrets, dormer windows, and expansive wraparound porches. The sizable wooden windows, adorned yet weathered, cried out for a new coat of paint. The rooms seemed to stretch endlessly, harboring hidden secrets. The house was undeniably beautiful but felt too vast for our family of 3. Frankly, I yearned for our former home. Mom did her best to infuse our old furniture and photo frames into the eerie mansion, striving to make it our own. Dad even hung a swing from the oak tree in an attempt to bring joy to my heart. However, no matter what my parents did, neither happiness nor a sense of home enveloped me. Each night, unsettling and bizarre dreams plagued me. I found myself lying in bed, vulnerable and helpless, while a young girl stared at me from the shadows. This recurring nightmare filled me with dread, and I eventually mustered the courage to confide in my mother. Her reaction was not what I had anticipated. She confessed to experiencing similar dreams, involving a young girl endlessly wandering our home. Her admission terrified me further, and I believe she shared it with Dad, as a tall figure cloaked in black appeared at our doorstep that very day. Clutching a Bible and a mysterious bottle, he roamed through the house, murmuring cryptic incantations and sprinkling an unknown substance. I didn't comprehend the purpose, but it felt right. Mom later explained that he was blessing the house, warding off any malevolent presence that might have taken up residence. For a brief period, things returned to normal. Nights were peaceful, and my dreams took on a more conventional nature. However, one afternoon, upon returning from school, I witnessed something that sent shivers down my spine. The swing, suspended from the tree, swayed of its own accord, while the tree's leaves remained still, untouched by any breeze. I tried to dismiss my unease, attributing it to the whims of the wind. Yet, as time passed, the eerie sensation of being watched refused to dissipate. A chilling dread overcame me, and I rushed inside, screaming for my mother. Her face turned ashen upon seeing me in such a state. Despite her reassurances, my panic intensified. During those days, we lacked a telephone, leaving us no choice but to anxiously await Dad's return from work. I vividly recall an unsettling strangeness that seemed to permeate the house. My mom's silence spoke volumes as she clutched my hand, her gaze betraying her own encounter with the inexplicable. After what felt like an eternity, the front door finally creaked open, and Dad entered. Mom wasted no time recounting the eerie occurrences within the house, her words fraught with panic. It was then that I learned of Mom's own unsettling experience. She had heard the laughter of a young girl echoing through the hallways earlier that day. My fear was palpable. Dad promptly summoned the same priest, whose disappointment was evident as he inspected the house. It became apparent that something malevolent dwelled within, and relocating was in our best interest. Dad incurred a substantial loss on the property, as it remained unsold for an extended period. Eventually, the government purchased the land. Approximately a decade later, around 2010, the government commenced dismantling the mansion due to its encroachment into the wilderness. Here's where the tale takes a strange turn. As the construction workers tore down the mansion, they stumbled upon the decomposed remains of a young girl. The police reopened the case with hopes of bringing closure and summoned Dad as the last property owner. My mom and I exchanged horrified glances. It turned out that our dreams of the little girl and our sense of her presence were not mere imagination. We all gave statements at the police station, but I remain uncertain about the subsequent developments. Nevertheless, this is a story I never hesitate to share when people claim not to believe in tales of the departed. Ever since I left my parents' home, I've embraced the solitude of living independently. There's a certain tranquility in self-reliance, and when I moved to my new residence, I ensured it became my secure sanctuary. On a stormy December night, fatigue overcame me, rendering me too weary to prepare dinner, so I opted for takeout. My initial plan was to watch a movie before drifting into slumber, but drowsiness gripped me swiftly. As I powered down the TV, I surrendered to a deep sleep. However, my restful state was disrupted within the hour by a jarring sound that shattered the silence. Despite my eyes remaining closed, I instantly became vigilant, striving to pinpoint the source of the disturbance. It emanated from a knock on my bedroom door, a truly startling occurrence given my solitary living arrangements. I squinted into the darkness, my vision still blurred from sleep, and to my shock, I discerned a man standing in my room. I rubbed my eyes, desperate for clarity, and a wave of terror washed over me. This tall figure, approximately 6 feet in height, was nearly indistinguishable in the nocturnal abyss. I felt an icy chill run down my spine, an indescribable dread engulfing me. I had always been meticulous about securing my doors, making it implausible for anyone to intrude. My body felt laden, and my sole desire was to vanish from that situation, though I knew it was an impractical escape plan. The urge to scream welled up within me, but my voice seemed muted, replaced only by inarticulate moans. I made a feeble attempt to rise from my bed, but it felt as if I were glued to the mattress, struggling in vain. My only recourse was to convince myself it was all a nightmare and force myself back to sleep. I squeezed my eyes shut with all my might. When I reopened them, the intruder had vanished, leaving my bedroom door wide open. Summoning my remaining strength, I fumbled for the light switch and surveyed the room. I was alone. However, a sharp pain in my head served as a cruel reminder of the intruder's violence. He had struck me with a hefty rod. I felt paralyzed. Soon, 3 more individuals emerged from the shadows, dragging me down the stairs. Agonizing pain coursed through my body as I was hauled along, my gaze locked downward. I was unable to lift my head, my eyes darting anxiously from left to right as I speculated about their next move. Subsequently, they bound me to a chair and sealed my mouth with tape. Blood flowed copiously from my head, and the agony was excruciating. I felt utterly trapped, my eyes wide and filled with desperation, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face. The assailants left me in the darkness, their search for valuables throughout the house yielding a meager haul of a few $100s, loose change, and a watch. It became evident that they were dissatisfied, leading to heated disputes among them. Eventually, they abandoned me and fled from my residence. Helpless and in pain, I mustered the strength to drag myself toward the front door. The vigilant neighbor spotted me and came to my aid. Initially skeptical due to the neighborhood's reputation for safety, they swiftly called 911 upon seeing my injuries, and I was rushed to the hospital. Upon regaining consciousness the next day, I recounted the ordeal to the police. They conducted a thorough investigation, and suspicions soon fell on the previous homeowner, who had sold the house to settle his debts. Upon apprehending him and subjecting him to hours of interrogation, he confessed to the plot. He had assumed that I, as a bachelor, was a wealthy and vulnerable target, prompting him and his associates to plan the robbery. The traumatic incident left me too fearful to continue living alone. I am now married, yet the fear still lingers, and nocturnal noises continue to unsettle me. To claim that I am completely unafraid at night would be a falsehood. This incident occurred shortly after my husband and I moved into our new home, just a few days following our wedding. We both had a strong desire for a cozy single-story house nestled in a pleasant neighborhood, and after a month of searching, we were fortunate enough to find the perfect one. Or so I thought. Our new house boasted a charming front garden and a modest backyard, fulfilling all our desires. To celebrate this exciting milestone, we decided to host a housewarming party with our friends. The evening was a joyful affair, but my husband, David, had an early work commitment the following morning, prompting us to cut the festivities short. The next day, I awoke to find David had already left for work, leaving me a delightful surprise on the dining table, a cup of coffee, French toast, and a note that read, "For my perfect wife." It could have been a Pinterest-worthy moment if the story had ended there. However, David had to attend a work event that kept him away for 2 days. Given our prior experience of living independently, we didn't find this separation particularly daunting. I was settling into our new home, eagerly anticipating some quality alone time. I had a lineup of movies and my favorite snacks ready for the day. As the hours passed, I noticed the weather taking a turn for the worse. I ventured to close the windows and spotted an elderly man in front of our house. There was something disconcerting about his demeanor, although I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I offered a warm smile in the hopes of a friendly exchange, but to my surprise, he stared back at me, unblinking and expressionless. I dismissed him as an odd character and closed the windows to continue with my activities. Throughout the day, I found my attention repeatedly drawn to the mysterious man. I occasionally glimpsed him through my window, which did unsettle me somewhat. Nevertheless, having encountered my fair share of unusual individuals, I tried not to let it bother me too much. That evening, after a conversation with David, I prepared for bed, deciding to take a quick shower before retiring. As the water flowed, I heard peculiar noises emanating from the street outside. Confused, I approached the window and peered out. To my dismay, the eerie neighbor was dragging something coarse across his lawn at 10 p.m., leaving me perplexed about his intentions. It appeared as though he was concealing his activities deliberately. Despite my unease, I opted to ignore him and eventually drifted off to sleep. The following morning, while retrieving the newspaper from the front porch, I noticed the man was awake as well, observing me through his window with a stoic expression. I pretended not to see him, quickly retreating inside. As the day progressed, my discomfort grew. His actions simply did not make sense. Reluctant to alarm my husband, I refrained from sharing my concerns with him, and instead confided in my best friend, Megan. Megan insisted on spending the night at my place to provide company and reassurance. She arrived in the evening and recounted seeing a figure that resembled an elderly man wandering within my fenced yard. This revelation sent shivers down my spine, and I was immensely relieved to have Megan by my side. We locked all the doors and took every precaution to ensure our safety. Around midnight, an eerie noise resonated from outside the window. At first, I attributed it to my overactive imagination, but when the unsettling sound persisted rhythmically, I grew alarmed. It was as though someone was aggressively banging on the wall. I sprang from the bed and scanned the room, only to find the man from the neighborhood standing outside my bedroom window, attempting to peer inside. His wide eyes and unsettling grin sent me into a panic, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, causing Megan to rush to my side. The intruder was taken aback by our swift reaction and made a hasty escape. Without delay, I dialed 911, and law enforcement soon found the man hiding in his own residence. Despite his denial, the street's CCTV footage clearly indicated his presence entering and exiting our house. Upon my husband's return the next day, I disclosed the entire ordeal to him. Initially, he was angry that I had kept it from him, but he quickly grasped my intention to spare him additional stress. In the subsequent days, we discovered that the man was a registered sexual offender who had recently been released from prison. Due to this unsettling experience, my husband and I decided to move away from that neighborhood. Whenever I feel a hint of fear or discomfort, I promptly notify my husband or the authorities, a practice that has helped preserve my peace of mind.